Bride-to-be makes a bold move after learning about her father's fatal diagnosis. When Shelby Schweikhart-Conville got engaged, she was over the moon. She couldn't wait to get cracking on planning her dream wedding, surrounded by friends and family, with her father there to walk her down the aisle. Though her plans changed drastically when her father's health declined, so within only 30 minutes, she planned a wedding that no one would ever forget. This wasn't the first time Shelby's family was dealt a scary diagnosis. Stephen, her father, was a cancer survivor, but was in remission. While initially Stephen's sickness was a shocking blow, it made him resilient. Still, hearing those familiar words from the doctor once again was devastating. Stephen's testicular cancer had returned. It was a tough time for the family as they hoped for the best but feared for the worst. Thankfully, Shelby had more than just her family for a shoulder to cry on. Aside from her friends, Shelby had Jared, the love of her life, who was soon to be her husband. Shelby was grateful for all the love she was surrounded with, and that Jared was welcomed with open arms. Stephen in particular loved his future son-in-law. It helped that he and Jared were both die-hard fans of the Indian Colts. Though, behind their smiles and plans for the future, everyone was worried about Stephen's prognosis. Shelby and Jared set a date in October 2020. Stephen started chemotherapy, though at this point his cancer had metastasized in his lungs. The possibility that he would make a full recovery was looking less likely. That's when the doctors gave the toughest call of all. Stephen's cancer was no longer responding to chemotherapy. There was no clear telling of when, but they predicted he didn't have much time left. Not knowing when Shelby's father would pass on, a good friend of hers suggested that they have their wedding in the ICU room where Shelby's father laid under life support. Shelby and Jared took no time making their decision. They were getting married. Since Shelby's dress wouldn't arrive until a month later, they had to scramble for a gown. Family and friends leaped into action, running to a nearby bridal store to track down another. Then there was Jared's attire. While it was still meant to be a suit and tie occasion, even in a hospital, Jared decided to go a different route. He'd always joked with his soon-to-be father-in-law about the wedding having a Colts theme, so Jared decided to make it so. As family and friends rushed to dress up Shelby to wedding perfection, hair, makeup, and all, Jared threw on his Indianapolis Colts jersey, in honor of the bond he shared with Stephen. Despite the last-minute plan, their church's pastor came through to officiate the bedside wedding ceremony. The way everything came together was a miracle in itself. As a team, they planned the wedding in a mere 30 minutes. It didn't look the way they had imagined, but it was worth it to see the surprise in Stephen's eyes when Shelby walked into the room in her wedding dress. He wasn't able to speak, but they figured out another special way to include him in the ceremony. The small ICU room was packed with the bride and groom's closest family members and friends. Stephen was delighted to see his baby girl all dressed up, beautifully, ready to marry a man he truly approved of. Instead of escorting her down the aisle, Stephen held the rings. When it was time, Jared walked over to the father of the bride and ceremoniously took the rings that would finally bond them as husband and wife. Although he couldn't talk, Stephen was overjoyed. He wrote with a Sharpie how happy he was to witness the happy couple sharing their vows and swapping their rings. All the emotion of the moment brought the proud dad some clarity. Seeing Shelby marry Jared, knowing his family was starting a beautiful new chapter, was all Stephen needed to feel okay making his decision. Knowing the right time had come, he asked to be taken off of life support. It was a bittersweet moment for everyone in the room. Just because they were prepared to say goodbyes didn't make it any easier. The critical care staff abided by Stephen's wishes and removed him from life support, and he waited to pass peacefully. Everyone braced for what was bound to come next, except life threw another curveball. Stephen held on. Within days, he was released from the hospital and able to return home for some more time with his family. Shelby spent a few more precious months with her father. However, he did pass away in April of 2020. It made her last-minute decision for a hospital room wedding one of the most important she's ever made. My dad got to see his baby girl get married, and it meant the world to me that he was able to see it, Shelby wrote on Facebook. It taught her to roll with the punches. Shelby and Jared didn't see their decision as selfless. That's just what you do when a family member needs you.